The UES Leviathan drifted silently above Jupiter, her 3-kilometer hull reflecting sunlight like a blade in the void. From the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison watched the gas giant's massive storm swirl, the great red spot staring back like an ancient, angry eye. Routine patrol. That's all this was supposed to be. Fleet exercises. Nothing more. But even on the quiet days, the Leviathan carried the presence of a predator. The kind of ship that made enemies think twice before even considering a fight. Morrison had commanded her for 3 years, and the thrill still hadn't faded. Every corridor spoke of power, kinetic railguns capable of shattering moons, plasma arrays that could turn an enemy cruiser into glowing debris, and the classified quantum torpedoes that had ended the Titan rebellion in a single strike. To Morrison, the Leviathan wasn't just a warship. She was humanity's unspoken answer to the question, what happens if someone out there doesn't come in peace? Around him, the bridge crew moved with quiet precision. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Baker sat at the tactical console, eyes scanning weapons readouts. Janet Webb monitored comms chatter. Navigator Paul Stone plotted their return course. Down in the engine room, Chief Engineer Tom Williams kept the fusion reactors humming, controlled stars locked inside armored chambers. 2 more hours, Morrison thought, and he could be back on Earth. Maybe even spend a few days at his mountain cabin, watching sunsets instead of sensor feeds. That quiet daydream shattered when Webb's voice cut through the comm. Captain, I'm picking up multiple contacts, all over the solar system. No jump signatures. No engine trails. They had simply appeared. Morrison moved to her station, eyes locking on the tactical display. Red dots bloomed across the map. Near every major planet and moon. Dozens of ships. Not human. Not even close. How many? He asked. 47 confirmed, maybe more, hidden behind planets. And sir, their energy output makes our reactors look like campfires. Baker's console lit up in warning. Proximity alarms. Weapons signatures. Morrison's voice was calm but absolute, all hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. The Leviathan came alive. Red emergency lights flooding the corridors, blast doors sealing, railguns rotating into position. The ship was ready to kill or die. Then, the main screen flickered. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez appeared from Earth Command, her normally composed expression tight with urgency. All fleet units, confirmed first contact with unknown alien species. All ships are ordered to Earth orbit for defensive positioning. First contact. The words hung heavy in the air. Humanity had speculated about it for centuries. Now it was happening, and Morrison commanded the most powerful warship we had ever built. Then Webb's voice broke in again. Sir, incoming transmission. Non-human, but there's a translation matrix in the signal. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything human ears had known, harmonics within harmonics, like a choir singing in dimensions we couldn't perceive. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. We are the Galactic Harmony Collective, representatives of 47 civilized species. We seek peaceful contact. We invite you to join the greater galactic community. The crew exchanged glances. Peace. Baker tapped his console and mouthed to Morrison, weapons active. 70% of the alien ships were running weapons hot. The voice continued, we propose a meeting between your 4th and 5th planets, and request that your great vessel, the one near the gas giant, be present. The Leviathan. They'd been watching us. They knew our most dangerous ship by name, or at least by reputation. Orders came in from Rodriguez, proceed to the meeting coordinates. Maintain full combat readiness. The Leviathan would represent Earth, and serve as its last line of defense if this peace turned into an ambush. 3 days later, the Leviathan approached the rendezvous point between Mars and Jupiter, escorted by the diplomatic vessel Harmony. The alien fleet awaited them. 23 ships, crystalline and luminous, bending light around their hulls in ways that hurt to look at. The largest warped the very space it occupied. Baker's scans made his voice drop to a grim whisper. "Captain, their weapons could vaporize our entire fleet. In minutes." Ambassador Kyle Chen, leading Earth's diplomatic team, hailed the Leviathan. "Captain Morrison, I'll be transferring to the alien flagship in 1 hour. They assure me our ships will remain unharmed. But keep your weapons ready." The alien transport that arrived had no visible engines. It simply drifted through space as if momentum and inertia were optional. Chen and his team boarded, and then, for 2 hours, nothing happened. Just brief, polite status updates from Chen. Until Dr. Amy Foster's voice broke in. "Captain, we have a problem. They know everything. They've been watching us for decades, our wars, our colonies, every weapon we've built. And Captain, they keep asking about the Leviathan." Morrison wasn't surprised. Humanity had always built weapons first, exploration ships second. We'd made a habit of arming ourselves before venturing out. That might have saved us once, but now it might get us destroyed. Suddenly, Baker's console screamed warnings. Alien ships moving, forming an encirclement pattern. Ambassador Chen came back on, sounding tense. "Captain, there's a faction here that sees humanity as too dangerous to join galactic civilization. They want us quarantined to Earth. Permanently." Dr. Foster added, "Their leader, Sub-Commander Vex, says letting humans into the galaxy would be like giving weapons to children." Then the worst, Baker's readouts showed alien ships locking weapons, on the Leviathan's reactor and bridge. If they fired, we'd never fire back. From Mars, distress calls started pouring in, alien ships were demanding entire human colonies evacuate within 6 hours. Surrender, or watch human civilization be dismantled piece by piece. Morrison made his choice. "All stations, prepare for combat operations." The Leviathan's weapons roared to life, railguns charging, plasma arrays glowing, quantum torpedo tubes loading. And that's when Mars answered back. Ancient alien machinery buried deep beneath its surface woke to the Leviathan's energy signature. Systems that had slept for millions of years began transmitting, broadcasting the Leviathan's combat data across the galaxy. As if announcing, humanity is here. And it is armed. The Leviathan's railguns glowed with pre-fire heat. Plasma arrays thrummed like the heartbeat of some titanic predator. On the bridge, Captain Morrison watched the alien fleet complete its encirclement, 23 ships, each one more advanced than anything humanity had ever dreamed of. The Galactic Harmony Collective had promised peace. But now, their warships formed a silent noose around humanity's most powerful warship. Every targeting sensor they had was locked on the Leviathan's bridge and reactors. If Morrison gave the order to fire, humanity's first true interstellar battle would last less than 10 minutes. And humanity would lose. But then, something else happened. The Leviathan's power surge, the final step before weapons discharge, had triggered something buried deep beneath Mars. A pulse. Not electromagnetic, not gravitational. Something older. Stranger. A transmission written in physics itself. "Captain," Dr. Amy Foster's voice trembled. "The signal is, rewriting our sensors. I'm seeing coordinates. Not just here, across the galaxy." "Who's sending it?" Morrison asked. She hesitated. "Not the collective. Not anyone alive." On the Leviathan's main display, alien commanders began speaking over one another. Some were furious, demanding the humans stand down. Others, a smaller faction, urged patience. Curiosity. Then, a new voice cut across all channels. Lower. Colder. It didn't come from any of the visible ships. Children of Soul, do not answer the architect's call. The bridge froze. Morrison felt the hairs on his arms stand on end. Baker muttered, "What the hell are architects?" Dr. Foster didn't look up from her console. Legends. Old rumors among xenolinguists. Supposedly, a civilization older than stars. Makers of machines that outlived them. But no one's ever had proof they existed. Now the proof was in their ears. Meanwhile, the pulse from Mars intensified. The Leviathan's sensors began showing impossible readings, faint structures scattered across deep space, as if a vast network of dormant stations had been waiting for this exact moment. Some of them were in places no human or alien ship had ever reached. The collective's fleet reacted instantly, ships broke formation, warping away to intercept these newly awakened sites. Ambassador Chen came through on a tight beam. "Captain, the diplomatic corps is in chaos. Half the collective believes we've just triggered a galaxy-wide security threat. The other half thinks we've found a relic from the precursors, something that could change the balance of power forever." Morrison understood the unspoken truth. Either way, humanity had just painted a target on its back. Hours passed in tense standoff. Neither side fired. The Leviathan held position, its weapons armed but silent. The alien flagship Orcs maintained a constant lock on them, its hull shimmering with energy fields that bent starlight. During that silence, Morrison kept thinking about the warning, "Do not answer the architect's call." Why had the voice spoken to humans first? Why now? And why did it sound almost human? In the early hours of the ship's third watch, the collective broke the quiet. A holographic projection filled the Leviathan's bridge. An alien whose features were hard to focus on, like it was made of shifting glass. Subcommander Vex. "Captain Morrison. You have brought your species to the attention of powers you cannot comprehend. The architects are not your allies. They are not your gods. They are not even alive in the way you understand life. They are the architects of extinction." Morrison met its gaze without flinching. "Then tell me how to stop them." Vex's expression shifted. If it could be called an expression at all. "You cannot. You can only survive long enough to be forgotten." That was the moment Morrison knew the collective wasn't here to protect humanity. They were here to contain it. To keep us small, silent, and under watch, because if the architects noticed us, the galaxy might burn. Baker whispered from the tactical console, "Captain. Mars isn't the only place sending signals now. Europa. Enceladus. Even the Oort cloud. It's like the whole solar system's waking up." Dr. Foster added, "And sir, these signals aren't just broadcasting coordinates. They're invitations." Within minutes, new contacts appeared on the edge of the system. Not collective ships. Not human. Dark shapes, almost invisible against the void. They didn't move like vessels. They swam. Foster's hands shook over the sensor panel. "I think, these are part of the void swarm. If the old stories are true, they're the architects' first scouts. They dismantle everything they find, atom by atom." Vex's voice came again, this time without form, just raw transmission. "You see now why you must be contained. Leave Sol. Hide in the dark between stars. Speak to no one." Morrison had heard enough. Humanity had waited 500,000 years to step into the stars. We were not going to crawl back into the shadows because someone told us to. The decision he made that day would define the next century. The Leviathan fired. Not at the collective. Not at the swarm. But at one of the ancient beacons now floating above Europa, shattering it into molten fragments. Baker didn't understand. "Sir, why destroy it? That tech could have been ours." Morrison's eyes stayed on the main screen. "Because the architects were listening. And I'm not letting them find their way here without a fight. The collective's fleet went into chaos. Some ships warped out instantly, unwilling to be anywhere near the architect's attention. Others moved to engage the Leviathan. Rodriguez's voice broke in from Earth Command. "Captain Morrison, you've just started something we may not be able to stop. The swarm is accelerating. Every beacon in the system is active now." And over it all, that same cold voice from before whispered into the Leviathan's comms, almost like it was speaking directly into Morrison's thoughts. "We are coming. The work will be completed. All worlds will be clean." As the swarm's first wave entered the system, Morrison stood on the bridge, hands gripping the railing. He didn't know if humanity could win this fight. He didn't know if the collective would help or betray us. But he did know one thing. The Leviathan would not run. And the galaxy would learn, in the fire to come, that humanity did not go quietly into extinction. The first wave arrived without ceremony. No grand armada. No blinding weapons fire. Just a slow drift of dark shapes, as if the void itself had begun to move. From the Leviathan's observation deck, they looked almost harmless. Fragments of rock. Shards of ice. Small, irregular, and countless. But the sensors told a different story. Each one was wrapped in a sheath of self-repairing nanostructures, absorbing and bending light, feeding on the solar wind. The swarm didn't need to fire a shot. Its weapons were time and inevitability. The collective ships moved first. 2 destroyers formed a forward line and opened fire, bright beams slicing through the black mass. But when the debris cleared, the swarm simply closed the gap. Baker watched the readings with a frown. They're not dodging. They're letting themselves be hit. And, sir, they're using the energy from the impacts. Dr. Foster's voice was quiet, almost reverent. They're learning. Adapting their molecular structure to our attacks. Every shot makes them stronger. Captain Morrison opened a channel to the Orleans, the collective flagship. "Morrison, if you know how to fight these things, now's the time." "Subcommander Vex, fight?" "No, Captain. We retreat. We scatter. That is how civilizations survive the architects." "Morrison, and you expect us to abandon our home?" "Vex, your home is already lost. The longer you stay, the faster they will grow. You may save some of your people, but not your system." Then the channel cut. The collective fleet began to pull away, their formations breaking apart into dozens of escape vectors. Earth Command erupted in anger over the comms. Leaders demanded Morrison pursue the collective, others begged him to bring the Leviathan home for planetary defense. But Morrison knew the truth. The Leviathan was the only ship in the system fast and armed enough to confront the swarm directly. And even that might not be enough. He ordered the ship toward Jupiter. Not to defend the planet, but to destroy another beacon. Europa's fractured ice shone under the thin sunlight as the Leviathan descended. The beacon floated above its surface, a black monolith etched with patterns no human eye could fully process. As they drew closer, crew members reported feeling phantom sensations, the taste of copper, a pressure in the skull, a faint whisper in a language they almost understood. Foster ran her scanner. "Sir. This thing is building something. Not physically, informationally. Like it's weaving a pattern into the swarm's behavior." Morrison didn't hesitate. "Target lock. Full railgun spread." The beacon shattered under the Leviathan's guns, a silent explosion of molten fragments spiraling into Jupiter's gravity well. And then, for the first time, the swarm reacted. From the drifting mass near the asteroid belt, several larger shapes emerged. Not mindless fragments, but coordinated constructs. Spindly frames of black lattice, bristling with spines. They moved with terrifying acceleration, cutting across millions of kilometers in minutes. When they struck, the Leviathan's shields flared white-hot. The first impact was enough to throw half the crew to the deck. Baker shouted from tactical, "They're bypassing our targeting systems, feeding false positions into our sensors. We're hitting empty space." Foster's fingers flew over her console. "They're not just fighting us. They're inside the ship. Piggybacking on our comm systems." A voice echoed through the Leviathan's corridors, low, resonant, the same one that had spoken before, "The work must continue. All things to their final form. All worlds clean." Morrison knew they couldn't hold the fight in open space. He ordered a retreat toward Io's volcanic horizon, using the moon's radiation to scramble the swarm's signal lock. The tactic bought them minutes. Not hours. Foster managed to isolate the invasive code in their systems. "Sir, I can cut them out, but I need to patch directly into the reactor interface." "If I get it wrong, you won't," Morrison said. "Do it." In the brief calm, Morrison thought about the collective's retreat. They had claimed this was the only way to survive, to scatter and become invisible. But he wondered if they had another reason. Something more, selfish. If the architects were truly as old and vast as the legends claimed, then surviving them might not just be about hiding. It might be about bargaining. Offering other civilizations as the sacrifice. Minutes later, Foster slammed the manual override and the invasive code burned out of the Leviathan systems in a flare of static. The ship's weapons locked back onto the enemy, and this time the shots hit. The largest construct broke apart under sustained fire, fragments tumbling into Io's gravity. The others scattered, retreating back toward the swarm's main body. For the first time, the Leviathan had bloodied them. But victory was brief. New readings came in, more shapes entering the system from beyond Neptune. Hundreds. Thousands. The swarm wasn't an invasion fleet. It was the leading edge of something far larger. Rodriguez's voice from Earth Command was grim. "Captain. Our deep space telescopes are picking up movement at the galactic rim. A ring structure. We think it's an architect forge." Foster turned pale. "That's where they build the real machines. The ones that don't just dismantle worlds, they overwrite them." Morrison made his decision. They couldn't stop the swarm here. Not with one ship. Not with one system. But if they could reach that forge before it finished whatever it was building, maybe they could delay it. Maybe they could give humanity a chance to prepare. The Leviathan would go beyond Sol. Alone, if necessary. He sent the order to Earth Command, evacuation priorities for every colony and orbital. Begin scattering refugee fleets toward deep space. No transmissions. No beacons. Just silence. As the Leviathan turned its bow toward the cold beyond Pluto, Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the dark tide creep inward, swallowing sunlight. The swarm was coming for Earth. The collective had abandoned them. And somewhere far beyond the edge of sight, the architects were building something new. Morrison didn't know if humanity would survive. But he knew this, they would face the darkness on their own terms. And the architects would learn the name of the species that refused to die quietly.